Welcome back. You're still watching The Perspective. I'm Florence Armin with Sabrina from Kakoa Chocolate Indonesia. Now, Sabrina, chocolate let's go take a look at the chocolate industry.
Yep.
And Indonesia's production and export has been declining in the last few years. Why do you think this is? You mentioned one of the challenges for farmers is pest control, management of their own products. Now, is this the same case everywhere else in farmers in Indonesia?
All across the board, yeah, they're facing issues with pests all over Indonesia. But beyond that, it's also competition for other crops, right? Because as a farmer, you have the option to plant anything that you want.
Yeah.
Nowadays, because it's so difficult to plant cocoa and they're not making enough money from it, lots of farmers are switching to rubber plantations or palm oil plantations.
Palm oil, yes.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So, what do you think the government is there something that both the private and the public sector doing about bringing about the fame that Indonesian cocoa beans used to have back into the market? We are the fourth largest exporter, I understand, but the number seems to be going down, and our cocoa beans are depleting.
We are exporting less raw cocoa beans, so unprocessed.
Less raw, okay.
Yeah, but then our grinding capacity has actually increased. So there's been a lot of investments made into big factories. It's actually doubled from about 300,000 metric tons to about 600 metric tons in the last 5 years alone. But they are not producing at capacity. So this is an issue that a lot of the big grinders are facing. So there's just not enough supply of cocoa beans from the farmers in Indonesia. So right now we're having to import beans from West Africa and even Latin America, which it sounds a bit ridiculous, right?
Use.
Exactly, yeah. So that's a big issue actually. So there are a lot of initiatives, partnerships from the private sector, the NGOs and also the government that are coming together to try and bring more awareness and education to farmers. Also different types of incentive packages to them, providing them with fertilizers, pesticides and the like with the aspirations to increase productivity and production.
Now, do you think Jokowi's economy policy, one of them is being having to give a subsidy on fertilizers, seedings, seeds for farmers? I'm sure this covers all sectors of farming. Do you think this would actually help boost, in the long run, boost cocoa farming, cocoa plantation or industry in Indonesia?
This is quite unpopular for me to say, but I'm going to say no. Because I think when you see the research that has been done on a longer term scale, right? It's been reports from the World Bank, many different institutions. So if you think about long-term sustainable agricultural development, the best investment that you can put into is research, R&D, and also extension services. So I think
what is an extension services?
Extension services is education for the farmers. So basically getting trainers to go out to the farms and teach farmers how to do things better. But that's not really popular, right? So I think it's a lot more popular for politicians to say, we'll give you subsidies because that's immediate results. Whereas if it's research, it happens
seemingly
in the
that's all they
back end.
need. It seems that is all they need, but it's we're barely scratching the surface of the problem that these farmers are facing.
Exactly, and we've seen cases as well where I've traveled up to Kalimantan where they've created entire post-harvest centers for farmers, right? In hopes that because the government there felt, oh, our farmers are not fermenting their beans, so let's supply them with all this equipment. We'll give it to them for free so that they'll ferment the beans. And it's been 3 years since that fermentation center has been built, and I think has been used only a handful of times.
So in this case, also implementation of its own policies is from the government that is not reinforced well on the field.
It's more about thinking about the market, right? What does the market want? What is the market willing to pay? And in the case of Kalimantan, when we asked the farmers, why aren't you fermenting your beans when you have all this great equipment available to you? They said, well, if I ferment the beans, I only get 1,000 per kilo more. So why would I put in 2 extra weeks worth of work to do the fermentation and the drying when I don't get paid much more? So really thinking about the market and what it wants, and is that enough incentive to motivate the farmers to do the extra work is really important. And I think lots of times that's missing from policies.
Are you working with other parties at the moment in advancing Kakoa Indonesia, Chocolate Indonesia, for instance, other organizations, you're both public and private sector, or are you just currently comfortable working on your own at the moment, directly with the farmers?
We work in partnership with a lot of NGOs because I think NGOs, they do a lot of great training programs.
Okay.
But again, it's that market link that's missing, right? So they train the farmers in all these great farm improvement programs. They teach them how to do things better. But once that's done, for the farmers, okay, where do we now sell our beans to, this high quality beans?
Right.
So that's where we step in and say, okay, we think you guys are doing great work. We love the work that you're doing, so we're willing to pay a lot more for the beans that your farmers are producing. So we work a lot with organizations. And we're actually starting to work with organizations all across Indonesia. We're developing what we call our single origin line right now. So similar to what coffee is like nowadays, where people can appreciate, coffee from Aceh, from Papua, and they all taste different. The same is true for cocoa, actually.
Okay.
So we're working with farmers and farms all over Indonesia, and also organizations all over Indonesia who have presence on the ground, and sourcing beans from them. Yep.
So would you say cocoa beans from these 6 major, including Lampung, producers, Sulawesi, North Sumatra, West Java, they're all different, and they have their own distinct smell, taste, and texture?
They do, yeah. So I think it's you have to be a mature chocolate consumer to be able to appreciate
identify.
Yeah. But yes, definitely, depending on the variety that's being grown, what type of cocoa beans being grown, to the climate, to the soil, all of that affect the taste of the cocoa beans. Yeah.
All right, and we'll touch a little bit on the consumer side, and also we'll be talking more about, we get to the fun stuff, which is the end product, a chocolate, right here on the perspective when we come back.